The story unfolds with an interesting rumor about a man in this world that even armed groups are afraid of. Whenever they see him, his name echoes and whispers, Peter. The most surprising thing about Peter is that he is an older man in his 60s. It would have been better for him if he had died years ago, but unfortunately, Peter has been chased down by thousands of killers. He has also lost all the assets he acquired throughout his life. Now, those after him threaten his loyalty to the organization, even though Peter remains a legend among them. The scene shifts to Peter standing over heaps of men he has just killed, with only one man left alive. The injured man recognizes that the figure standing before him is Peter, even though Peter wore the funny mask over his face. The man, in shock, realizes that Peter is still alive, despite the legend that surrounded him. As thousands of killers once hunted him down, Peter now simply walks toward the injured man calmly. Peter tells him that the reason no one has ever found him, despite being hunted by so many, is because the Peter they were looking for is no longer who he used to be. He then takes off his mask. The man is stunned when he sees Peter's face. He cannot believe his eyes and thinks it's impossible. Peter casually points his gun at the man while smoking a cigarette and shoots him. The scene shifts to 3 months earlier, where Peter is standing inside his bookstore. Meanwhile, he receives a phone call. The man on the line advises him to stop ignoring the calls and visit the hospital. He reminds Peter that if he continues to delay, he will die in less than 3 months. But it seems Peter is not afraid of death. As he gathers a mountain of pills while organizing books on the shelves, he reflects that he has been handling life and death situations his entire life. He thinks about how he gave the last 50 years of his life to the organization and admits he has no regrets. While sorting books, Peter comes across one titled How to Take Portraits. He realizes he has never taken any photos of himself. Looking into the mirror and watching his aged body carrying a pile of books, he acknowledges that might be his only regret. Just then, a schoolgirl wearing uniform and holding her bag walks into the shop. She greets Peter and tells him she wants to buy a middle school textbook. Peter, sorting books in the other corner of the shop, welcomes her warmly. Turning around with a customer-friendly demeanor, he cracks a joke, saying he sells every book there, except the ones he doesn't. The student asks if he sells used textbooks. Peter replies that he has textbooks ranging from the 1960s to 2020, including books from different countries. He then asks which one she prefers and suggests she choose the latest edition. The girl explains that she wants the books for her younger sibling. Peter assumes she is probably a student from the nearby high school and starts picking out books for her. Noticing her green name tag, Peter deduces that she's a senior. The girl confirms this, impressed by Peter's sharpness, and asks how he knows so much. Peter replies that he knows everything about everyone in the neighborhood. Peter brings out a set of brand new books, which shocks her. She explains these aren't the ones she wants to buy, and adds that she only has 1,100 Korean won and can't afford the brand new set. Peter smiles and tells her he no longer needs those books. She can have them. The girl tries to refuse, but Peter tears off the plastic covers and tells her they are no longer brand new. She tells him he doesn't have to do that for her, but he assures her it's okay. Just by looking into her eyes, Peter reveals that he knows how much she adores her younger sibling and advises her to be good to them while she still has the chance. The girl is surprised. Peter adds that she will regret it if she doesn't. As Peter finishes packing the books for her, the girl calls him Grandpa to get his attention. Peter gently corrects her, saying she should call him Mr. She then asks Peter if he has ever regretted anything before. Peter replies that regrets only grow with age. He recalls a time when he had to leave his daughter behind so they could both survive. He tells the girl that they can't do anything to change the past. Peter then told her to go home, take care of her siblings, and avoid doing things she would regret later. Just then, the girl was about to stab Peter in the back, but it looked like Peter already knew she had been sent there to kill him. He told her to turn back and promised not to kill her if she did. Hearing this, the girl was shocked and wondered how he knew why she was there. Peter revealed that he had memorized the faces of every student at the high school. To confirm, Peter reminded her that she had told him she was a senior, but the high school had only been built 2 years ago. The girl realized that Peter had caught her. Peter pointed out that the knife she carried smelled of blood, a scent he had been exposed to for many years. He mocked her for trying to hide it with cheap perfume. The girl decided to go ahead and attack him since she had already come so far and had no other choice. She took the knife and tried to stab him, but suddenly started to feel afraid that she would be the one to die. She reminded herself that she was the one with the knife. Peter told her she could still have the books because he knew what she had said about her younger sibling was real. Judging by how she spoke, Peter confirmed that she was also from the same organization as him. The girl realized she had blown her cover when she used honorifics by accident. Peter told her she was from Glory Orphanage like him, and that their way of working hadn't changed. Yet Peter claimed that she hadn't been trained properly. He then told her that Plan B is initiated if the volunteer service mission fails in their organization. Suddenly, two other men crashed through the roof of the store and started shooting. Peter pushed the girl away and revealed that in their organization, if the mission is unsuccessful, the assassin must be neutralized. The girl noticed that Peter had been hit by one of the bullets, and it had gone through his stomach. The other two men opened fire again, and Peter tried to fight back by shooting at them. But unfortunately, one of them grabbed the girl while the other punched the older man, wondering how such a weak man could be Peter. Meanwhile, a man with an octopus tattoo on his head arrived. His code name was Eight-Legged Man, and he was the boss's informant. He spoke about how Peter had the most extraordinary reputation in their organization and was the highest-ranked agent. But now, he was nothing because of the disease. While lying on the floor, Peter told them to come straight to the point and explain why they wanted to kill him. In response, the Eight-Legged Man told him that the boss didn't like him. Peter seemed confused to hear that, so the informant explained that there was a massive bounty of 76 billion won on Peter's head, and thousands of killers would be trying to claim it the moment he stepped out of the organization. Peter found it funny that the bounty matched the amount in his bank account. The informant confirmed that it was indeed his money. The bounty was the money Peter had saved up over the years while risking his life. But now, that money would be going into someone else's hands, and the Eight-Legged Man wanted to be that person. The Eight-Legged Man asked Peter to die by his hands and punched him in the face. The other man joined in, sending Peter flying into the other room. They assumed Peter had been knocked out. The Eight-Legged Man looked disappointed that the fight ended so quickly and told the other man to clean up the mess. When he looked closer at Peter, Peter surprised him with a flashbang and escaped through the door. They realized they had been tricked, and the Eight-Legged Man ordered his men to go after Peter, knowing he couldn't have gone far with a bullet in his stomach. The two men headed out into the rainy night to search for Peter. It was raining heavily outside. Peter was huffing in pain, lying in the park's play area. He thought that he wasn't in any condition to fight back. Bleeding badly and huffing in pain, he realized he was too old now. Peter thought back to his life, how he had lived every day for the organization. At an early age, when other boys his age were studying in school, Peter was learning how to swing a knife and kill people. While his peers were attending classes, he was learning to wiretap and eavesdrop until his ears bled. When others were dating and romancing, he became a Russian spy living with frostbite 24/7. While others were planning families, he was fighting terrorist groups just to survive. Peter had worked for the organization by constantly putting his life on the line. Everything changed when a new boss took over. The new boss believed Peter was too old, too sick, and too soft, so he wanted Peter to die. Peter groaned in pain at the playground, recalling how he had given everything to the organization and never asked for anything in return. Yet now they were treating him like trash. Angrily, he questioned whether his life had ever meant anything to them. At the very least, he believed he didn't deserve to be treated that way. Peter motivated himself, saying he couldn't die like this. He wouldn't allow anyone to take his money. He then remembered his daughter, the one he had left behind many years ago. Suddenly, he lost consciousness and fell to the ground, still bleeding badly. At the Eight-Legged Man's hideout, the two other killers were in the kitchen, cooking something and talking about how they would have won the bounty if they hadn't let Peter escape. The second man wondered why such a massive bounty was on an old man's head. The first man explained that it was probably the least they could do to respect such a legend. The second man didn't care. He was only after the money. He wanted it so badly that he had given up his kickboxing championship title just to become a bounty hunter to kill Peter. While holding Peter's picture, he said they would kill him and take that bounty. Suddenly, they were interrupted by a man who told them that the photo was the only one that showed Peter's face. When they turned around, they were shocked to see Peter standing in front of them. But they realized the Peter they were seeing looked younger. They assumed he was someone else wearing the same outfit. Peter himself admitted he didn't know what had happened. He claimed that when he woke up, he was already like this. Judging by the bullet hole and the blood on his shirt, Peter realized that he was himself. The second man told him he was in the wrong place, assumed he was just a student, and warned him to leave. Peter replied that he knew everything, and that was exactly why he was there. He then grabbed the second man's hand and told him to take him to the eight-legged man. Hearing this, they assumed the young man was also in their line of work. The second man said he had to die to reduce the competition and tried to punch him. But Peter stopped his fist with his palm. The man was shocked by his strength and began to wonder if he might be the legend. Peter crushed the bones in his hand with a single squeeze. The first man tried to stab Peter from behind, but Peter quickly turned and landed several hits on him while still in the air. The second man grabbed a knife and prepared to fight, asking Peter who had sent him. Peter replied that those who mastered only cutlery weapons were third class at best. The man was confused, but Peter continued, explaining that men who mastered all weapons were second class, but those who could use anything as a weapon were first class. After saying this, Peter grabbed a nearby scarf, wrapped it around his hands, and prepared to use it as a weapon. The man charged at Peter with a knife, but Peter threw the knife away with the scarf, then wrapped it around the man's neck and slammed him into a big pot of spaghetti, defeating him. While lying on the floor, the man asked Peter who he was. Peter picked up the photo they had taken of him and remembered the bounty the eight-legged man had mentioned if he left the organization. Peter confirmed that this was the only photo they had of him. Once confirmed, Peter burned the photo while lighting a cigarette and declared that even if thousands of men were after him, they would never find him, because the old Peter they were looking for was already dead. He had become the younger version of himself. When he opened his eyes, Peter had been rejuvenated. The eight-legged man was traveling back in a Mercedes, and the girl was also with him. He said they had lost Peter just when they were about to catch him. Peter would soon be wanted everywhere, and they had to catch him before that happened. The eight-legged man added that Peter would die soon anyway due to cancer and suggested they show some kindness to their subordinates because of his condition. Meanwhile, Peter had left the eight-legged man's hideout. Later, he stood shirtless, staring at himself in a mirror. Peter couldn't believe what was happening to him and how he had suddenly transformed into his younger self. The bullet that was in his stomach was now gone, and even the pain he had been suffering from due to cancer had also vanished. Even though he had no idea how it all happened, the most important thing was that the bounty hunters couldn't recognize him now by appearance. Peter knew they would always find the traces he left behind, but they would never see the older Peter they were searching for. He changed his clothes, as the ones he had on were no longer a fit for his younger body. Just then, Peter heard two thugs talking. Peter approached them and told them to take their cigarettes outside, since they were in a non-smoking area. The thugs tried to intimidate him, but Peter insisted they go out. The fat one among them slapped Peter and said he would let him go since he was feeling good today, but warned him not to look at them again. Peter walked away, not wanting to waste his time. The thugs thought he was afraid of them, but Peter then locked the door and decided to deal with them quickly. He walked toward them. The thugs were confident they could take him on and assumed that Peter was going to teach them manners. Peter rolled up his sleeves and told them he would teach them a lesson for not respecting their elders. The fat thug again tried to slap Peter, but Peter landed a nasty punch on his stomach, sending him flying to the floor. The other thug pulled out a knife and tried to threaten Peter, asking if he knew whom he was messing with. Peter replied that he didn't know him, but confirmed that the thug was holding the pocket knife incorrectly. The thug looked confused, and Peter explained that he would cut his own finger if he swung the knife the way he was holding it. Peter then thought to himself that someone swinging a knife shouldn't have his arm placed in front of him. Suddenly, the thug attempted to swing the knife at Peter, but Peter managed to strike his hand, disarm him, and swiftly hit him on the neck, making him fall to the ground. While the thug clutched his neck in pain, Peter told him not to try stabbing unless he was ready to die. The thug began to fear Peter and asked for his identity. Peter didn't know what kind of dirty jobs the thug did for a living, but if he wanted to know who Peter was, then he had to die right there. Peter grabbed him by the shoulder and told him that if he wanted to know, he indeed had to die. The thug was terrified and wet his pants, promising he would do legal work from now on. Peter then took all of the thug's clothes and left him naked in the restroom. On his way out, Peter checked his bank account and saw that all his money had disappeared. He angrily thought to himself that he had warned them not to touch it. He realized they had started a war around him. Peter overheard two students talking about scholarships. One said they had received a scholarship from the Glory Club, and the other admired him. Peter remembered the place where he had grown up, Glory Orphanage, which was once operated by a small religious facility. Now, after 50 years, it supported children suffering from extreme food shortages. The Glory Club had grown to cover all political and business corners of the world. It was a company Peter had been part of for many years, and now Peter wanted to dismantle it with his own hands. The scene shifted as the eight-legged man entered a butcher's shop, where a man sitting in a chair asked if he had come alone to capture him. The eight-legged man replied that he wasn't Peter, but that he was alone, which was enough for people at his level. The butcher said they would die soon if they kept trusting in Peter. The eight-legged man replied that it didn't matter if someone else died too early. The eight-legged man wanted to finish introductions and wrap things up quickly, saying that finishing sooner would make it less painful. The butcher smiled and said they had guests, so they had prepared an entire supper. He gathered his guards to surround the eight-legged man. This was the Wagner mercenary base, the best private military company in the West since 1948. The head of the company thought that the eight-legged man wasn't even among the top 12 in the Glory Club, and wondered why he was so confident standing there alone. Then, he ordered his men to attack the eight-legged man at once. But the eight-legged man killed them all in one go, using his signature skill, entire body hypermobility. After witnessing this, the leader fell to the ground, stunned, and asked how an average human could do such a thing. He screamed for the killer to stay away from him, but the eight-legged man approached and killed him. Later, the eight-legged man returned to his hideout with the girl from earlier. She informed him that his assassins were dead. Someone had killed them with extreme precision, leaving no trace behind. The killer had also destroyed all the security cameras. The eight-legged man assumed that only one man could do that, none other than Peter. He wondered what kind of tricks this old man had used to stay alive and manage to kill his men even inside the hideout. He believed Peter's bounty would drop soon and wanted to kill him before anyone else could. The eight-legged man ordered the girl to go and find Peter's hideout and report back to him. The girl stayed silent for a moment, remembering the time back at the bookstore where the kind older man had saved her life during an assassination attempt. Still, she accepted the order. After that, they walked into a restaurant. The waiter told the eight-legged man that someone was waiting for him inside. The waiter then asked Peter if he had a reservation, as it wasn't a working day. Peter looked up and explained that he had no reservation, but had come with a grudge. The eight-legged man joked and asked if Peter had come to press him about an unpaid tab or something from the past. But Peter replied that he was somewhat right. His tab was indeed too big. Peter glared at him and said the tab was around 76 billion won. The eight-legged man initially smiled, thinking it was a joke, but his expression changed when he realized what Peter meant. He ordered his men to lock the door. The eight-legged man assumed the young man might be connected to Peter and assured him he wouldn't leave the restaurant alive. He was curious to know who this young man was and how he knew so much about Peter. The eight-legged man confirmed that this man wasn't from his Glory Club and didn't match any of the intel they had. As the waiter loaded his gun, the eight-legged man wondered if the young man was Peter's secret child or perhaps a disciple. But then he corrected himself, remembering that Peter had always worked alone. The eight-legged man then offered the young man a chance to walk out alive. He gave Peter two options. The first was to reveal the exact location of Peter and walk away unharmed. The second was to fight and die with a bullet to the head. Peter replied to the eight-legged man that he offered good choices, but Peter didn't need either of them. Instead, Peter gave him a third option, that his name was Peter. Peter told the eight-legged man that he was the one who had killed his subordinates. The eight-legged man didn't take it seriously, unsure of what the young man was talking about. Peter remarked that a young guy like him must have terrible hearing, and repeated that he had killed his two subordinates. The eight-legged man was still unsure of what was going on, and he didn't believe that Peter, the young man sitting in front of him, was the person responsible. He mentally debated who this man was and why he would attack them. He called the young man Peter, still believing he was just an average student, and threatened him, while both the high school girl and the waiter pulled out their weapons. The eight-legged man demanded again that Peter reveal his relationship with the real Peter. Peter calmly watched them as the girl drew her knife, ready to fight. He told the eight-legged man that there was only one way to find out about the relationship. When the eight-legged man asked what that was, Peter told him that he would have to kill him. The eight-legged man smiled and said he was best at killing people. He then signaled the waiter to shoot Peter, instructing him to ensure Peter could still breathe afterward. When the waiter pulled the trigger, Peter threw his chopstick with such accuracy that it struck the waiter's throat. The man fell to the ground, bleeding. The girl couldn't believe what she had just seen and stared in disbelief at the fallen waiter. Peter picked up a new pair of chopsticks and continued eating his meal. The young girl was deeply impressed by Peter's skill, admitting that no one in her organization could do what he just did. The eight-legged man, also impressed, complimented Peter's flashy move. As he walked over to the waiter's body, he praised Peter's skill and asked what club he was from, offering him a chance to join the Glory Club. He pretended to be friendly, but once close enough, he pulled out his gun and began shooting at Peter. Peter swiftly ducked behind the table and threw a chili sauce bottle to the ground, splattering liquid to mislead them. The eight-legged man laughed as the bullets pierced the table and, seeing red liquid on the floor, assumed it was Peter's blood. He mocked the young man for thinking he could stop bullets with a table and, assuming Peter was injured, gave him one last chance to reveal his connection to the Real Peter. He rushed behind the table, ready to finish the job, but was shocked to find no one there. He realized the liquid was just chili sauce. Frantically, the eight-legged man searched the area. He checked behind the pillar, but again, no one. When he looked up, Peter spat chili sauce in his face, jumped on him, tricked his hand, and punched his gun-holding arm, breaking it and disarming him. Peter then landed a vicious blow to his face. The eight-legged man began to faint, unable to see clearly and bleeding from the mouth. Peter twisted his neck backward, as if breaking it, and the eight-legged man collapsed on the floor with his head facing the wrong way. Peter looked at him coldly and started walking in the opposite direction. The eight-legged man, stunned, thought about how he had faced countless opponents, but never someone with the skills of this young man. He began recalling his training sessions from when he was young, when his mentor had taught them all that one day they would face a strong opponent and needed to strike when the enemy was distracted. The eight-legged man remembered he had created a unique technique to handle such threats, one only he could execute. That technique involved pinning the opponent to the ground like a mixed martial arts fighter and twisting them until they begged for mercy. His trainer had pushed him to make his grip so tight it could kill the enemy over time. That was exactly what he had done, and there was one final lesson. Never turn your back on an opponent, even if you think the fight is over. Having mastered the art, the eight-legged man completed his unique technique and believed he would never lose to anyone. Just before Peter walked out of the place, the eight-legged man grabbed his leg and applied his special move, wrapping himself around Peter's body and beginning to break his bones. Peter screamed, and the eight-legged man tightened his grip, declaring that he had been doing this before Peter was even born and had far more experience than a newbie. But Peter stood calmly beside him and asked how much time he needed to complete the move. The eight-legged man froze. He realized he wasn't holding Peter at all. He looked down and saw he had applied the technique to his own waiter. The man had fainted and died, and the eight-legged man was in shock. He looked at the young man in horror. After decades in the business, he was certain now he was going to die at the hands of this skilled young man. He thought Peter might be stronger than even the 12 apostles. Desperate, the eight-legged man offered to talk. He begged Peter to wait and not kill him immediately. He stood up and grabbed the girl, offering her in exchange for his own life. He said Peter could take her and do whatever he wanted with her. The girl resisted, but the eight-legged man shut her up. Peter accepted the deal, amused at how quickly Glory Club members made bargains to save their own skin. The eight-legged man threw the girl to Peter and ran toward the exit door. He told Peter he'd pretend nothing happened and encouraged him to enjoy the girl. Peter called out and reminded him of a specific technique. The eight-legged man stopped in shock. How did Peter know about that? When he turned around, Peter repeated a familiar phrase, one that his mentor used to say, "If you turn your back on your opponent when you think you've won, you will surely lose your head." The eight-legged man recalled those words from his training and saw the resemblance between Peter and his own mentor. He realized that the young man standing before him was Peter. Peter then reminded him of what he'd said earlier, that none of his opponents ever lived to tell the tale after hearing his name. Peter rushed at him, twisting the eight-legged man's flexible body until his bones snapped, killing him on the spot. The scene shifted. The head of the Glory Club was exercising on the rooftop of his office, wearing only shorts. He had a woman's tattoo on his back. His subordinates reported that the eight-legged man was dead and that the CCTV data had been erased. There were no clues about the killer. The boss responded to an older subordinate who had been shot and was dying, asking how one man had killed 4 trained operatives without leaving a trace. The boss announced that the 76 billion won bounty would now be elevated to an SSS-level mission, and he ordered his subordinates to inform all members of the Glory Club. From now on, they were authorized to kill Peter wherever they saw him. The scene then shifted to the busy streets of the town. A boy in a public area pointed out a Glory Club advertisement to his father, saying they had started their service. Others also looked up at the big screen. Among the crowd, Peter also stood watching. The screen displayed a coded message from the Glory Club, a picture of the old Peter, along with a message calling for help for the elderly and homeless. Beneath, it was a phone number for donations. Volunteers were also distributing flyers. One of them approached Peter and handed him a flyer, asking him to donate 20,000 won a month as it was a non-profit organization. Peter looked at the flyer, crushed it in his hand, and swore he would take down the Glory Club himself.